So today the Knights were struck the killing blow by the Sharks, and it's all over. We lost 4-5. This is a big game, and we're going to do this one a little differently today. We're not going to talk about all the individual goals. We're just going to give you kind of the game as a whole, and we're going to discuss, obviously, what everyone wants to talk about.
The only thing that matters in a 60-minute game?
It was almost an 80-minute game, excuse you.
Okay, fair. Okay, I didn't count overtime.
So let's quickly just break down what happened in the game. So we come into this game fairly strong. We got plenty of shots on goal. The Sharks had more shots on goal. In the first we scored, in the second we scored, in the third we scored, all belonging to Carlson, Eakin, and Pacioretty. Things were going great for us, and then the cosmic event happened, if you would. There was the mighty hit. You want to give me some of the details on that hit?
Sure. So first off, from this, a major penalty is assessed. So that means 5 minutes, and that is not ended when a goal is scored like a regular power play. So basically what happens, straight off the draw, Eakin loses the draw. And then he cross-checks Joe Pavelski. That is a penalty. And then Joe Pavelski falls awkwardly into Stastny, and then falls off Stastny and hits his head, and basically just starts bleeding out on the ice. Like I said, a major penalty is assessed from this, which on a liberal reading of the rules is possible, but if you watch the tape, there's really nothing wrong that happened. Sometimes there are minor penalties that happen where players do something that they legitimately thought would not get them called, or they legitimately thought was okay to do. There are minor penalties that happen where a player does something that they know is wrong, but they think they won't be called of it based on the flow of the game or something like that. And then there are minor penalties where you do something wrong and you know you're going to get called for it. Like if you hook somebody down as they're going to the net, like you're going to get called to it, you go straight to the box. For major penalties, very often the player knows that what they're going to do is going to get called. Sometimes they don't know that they're going to get 5. Very often they don't know that they're going to get 5. And then sometimes that's like in the case of like fighting, they know they're going to get 5. I can't think of a single other example other than what happened tonight where a player probably has a very legitimate thought process that goes something like, what I did wouldn't have gotten me a penalty. Eakin did something in cross-checking Pavelski that would not have been called a penalty if nothing else happened. Eakin did something in cross-checking Pavelski, which is against the rules. But also, it happens on 70% of face-offs. It happens almost every time. You can count it. And so basically what I'm saying here is that even if Pavelski falls and he falls slightly differently, there's not a penalty assessed. The only reason that a penalty is assessed is because he's bleeding and he's down on the ground because he landed awkwardly. And basically what that comes down to is that it's an unfortunate accident that led to a knee-jerk wrong call that took a 60-minute game and put it in 5 minutes, basically. Changed the course of a game in 5 minutes.
And so to quickly cover what happened after this call is the Sharks just went on a lightning streak. In 4 minutes and 1 second, they scored 4 goals. Like back to back. It just kept pumping them out. And the only thing that really was the saving grace of this game was Marchessault putting it in with 45 seconds left in the game, taking it to overtime. And we'll talk about the overtime goal in a minute because I do want to talk about that one a little bit. But just back to this penalty, like, why are we playing like that? Like, this series is almost over, and I guess you're saying he did something that wouldn't normally be called, but I feel like we should be playing more reserved. Like, we're 3-0, and I feel like we're coming into the end of the series 10 minutes away. I mean...
Yeah, it's really something that it happens every face-off. If anyone who says, like, oh, Pavelski wasn't expecting to get cross-checked there, does Pavelski take face-offs? Because like I said, it happens in almost every face-off. Go, if you can find like just some replays of games this year, I'm telling you, it happens every face-off. If somebody loses a face-off fairly clean or clean all the way, they will get wins a face-off. They will get cross-checked. It happens. Period. Like it's a fact. And so Eakin was just playing the game as the league has allowed the game to be played. So it's not a matter of like, maybe take the gas off take the pedal off the whatever, you know what I'm saying? Take the foot off the gas and, don't play like that. That's the way that a game, that's a way that game 82, when you've already clinched your playoff spot, is played. That's the way that every game is played. There's nothing weird about it. And so, once again, what Eakin did is a penalty. It's against the rules. It's cross-checking. But it never gets called. 0% of the time does it get called. And also, it's not with intent to injure. He did nothing wrong in doing what he did by the way that the game is played at the NHL level.
So you're not even saying it should be called back into like it should have been a double minor, or you're saying it just shouldn't have been called at all?
Okay, so Pavelski goes down and starts bleeding on the ice. There's going to be a penalty. 100% of the time there's going to be a penalty. What's the right call? The right call is 2 minutes to Eakin. What's a reasonable call? Double minor, Stastny and Eakin. The call that was made is 5 minutes. And let me elucidate the difference between 2 minutes, 4 minutes, and 5 minutes. A 2-minute penalty. 1 goal is scored. The game is now 3-1. The penalty is over. 4-minute penalty. 2 goals are scored. The game is now 3-2. The penalty is over. 5-minute penalty. 1 goal is scored. You're still on the power play. 2 goal is scored. You're still on the power play. 7 goal is scored in the 5 minutes. I keep saying goal. It doesn't matter. As long as it's in the 5 minutes, it just keeps going. The difference between those two things is like it's night and day. There's no comparison.
Well, no matter how you look at it, the goal, the play gets called as the major misconduct, and the 4 goals happen. Now, there's a lot of talk about what could have gone differently with these goals, and the first one I hear a lot about is, where was our timeout? Why did we not like put a stop to this and pause their momentum and like get our team's heads back together?
Yeah, there's nothing to say about that. It's bad coaching, honestly. It should have been after the first one, maybe, because it happened almost immediately after the first
15
one.
seconds.
Maybe the timeout should have been called. After the second one, timeout certainly should have been called. After the third one, it's inexcusable that the timeout isn't called. And then after the fourth one, it's finally called. And I don't know how much accuracy there is to it, but I actually heard that like the coach.
Everyone was saying he's like, I didn't call. He was like,
I didn't call that. Right?
Like, why?
So,
why
wouldn't
he just
you call it?
made a decision at this point that he's just not going to call timeouts, and he's like stuck his feet in? Like,
yeah, there's nothing to like the not calling the timeout is inexcusable. That being said, Gallant has shown that he's a great coach all season, and a lapse of judgment right then and there is not going to make him not a good coach, and it's not going to make him not the number one coach that players in the league want to play for. Like, they voted on this. Players like playing for Gallant.
Okay, but like, where was our penalty kill? Like, 4 goals. Is our penalty kill like just flopping that bad? Like, what happened?
Okay, so there are 3 penalty killing units. There are 6 defensemen, right? So that's your back half of your 4 people who are out on the penalty kill. You got 6 of your defensemen. So who are the other 6 guys who are out on the penalty kill? Well, the first 2 guys that come to mind to me are Carlson and Smith. Both really good penalty killers. but they're not our best penalty killers. They're not the most defensive penalty killers. They're really good in the offensive zone, breaking up plays in the neutral zone, preventing the opposing team from getting set up in the defensive zone. From what I remember, the puck hardly ever left the offensive zone during the 5 minutes. So Carlson and Smith are not in their best place to be making a play. And again, they're not our best defensive power play duo. After that, okay, so let me change the question. Who are our two best penalty killers? For my money, it's Belmar and Eakin. And you might notice something about those two names. Number one, Eakin got thrown out of the game. Unjustly, I remind you. And Belmar was hurt and out of the game. Which is, there's nothing you can do about that, but your penalty kill is going to suffer. And our penalty kill did fine earlier in the game. It's, you're missing your two best penalty killers. And so you have guys out there who are either not usually on the penalty kill or guys who are gassed. And the fact of the matter is the game was over. Like, it's hard to put a value on thinking that a game is over. When the Knights won this game, and honestly, accepting this penalty happening, the Knights won this game. And this penalty happening, people say, oh, you shouldn't let in 5 goals in 4 minutes, right? Or 4 goals in 5 minutes. Well, I don't think you're putting a value on momentum and the Sharks coming out with fire, whereas the Knights were, like you said, taking it easy. Like you said, why are we playing so aggressively? And I'm telling you that it's the way that every game is played, and so there's nothing to be done about it. So the Knights were already playing it easy, playing because they know they've got a tough series coming up against the Avs. They're already playing like that, and suddenly they need to go from winding down to fifth gear, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Well, no matter how you put it, it happened. There were 4 goals off of it, which sucked, and watching the Shark players wiggle their fingers and go, "Oh, that's 1. Ooh, that's 2," was very infuriating. But Marchessault ties it up eventually, and we go to overtime.
I've told you this, but I just want to say, there's no part of the way that I choose to deal with this, and maybe it's not the right way. Is there's certainly reasons to be upset. But to me, upset is being different than being mad. A player's down on the ice, bleeding out. Without the ability to look at a replay, a major penalty is called on that every single time. It's the wrong call. And so what can I reasonably expect? Is somebody going to tell me, well, yeah, the league is going to say, oh, sorry, that was the wrong call. No, it's not going to happen. There's a 0% chance of that happening, so why should I be mad? There's no reason to be mad about this game because you won't get anything from it. So what are you going to do? Be mad forever? Because you're never going to get anything back. So be upset that the wrong call is made and hope that, the ability to review these plays comes in. Because the fact of the matter is that this is a game played at a very high level, and you want the game to be played fairly. You don't want the game to be decided by human error, which is what happened tonight, or, yesterday. You don't want the game to be decided by human error because you end up with situations like this, where a fan base is mad because it's quite clear that an error was made. And so I mean, there's no clearer way that I can put it other than you want this game to be played fair because that's what's fun. When players know that the right call will be made no matter what, that means that nobody's getting away with anything, and that these players have to play with skill, and they have to play with speed, and they have to play in a way that is fun and interesting to watch, because they have to rely on the fact that they are professional athletes in order to win these games. And this was a really fun and entertaining series because a lot of the time the players knew what they could get quote unquote get away with, and so they were playing right up to the line. And so if the line is moved to what the rules say the line is, the rules are there for a reason, and the rules are more or less correct. And so if the game is played to the rules that are established, the game would be better. If the rule book wasn't put away in the postseason, the game would be better. If the rules were there's a really interesting little graph, and it's a bell curve of how many penalties are, I don't know if bell curve is the right word, but basically it's how many penalties did a team take versus how many penalties or how many power plays did they go on. And the interesting thing about this graph is that every team is exactly even. They basically had as many power plays as they had penalty kills. Every single team. You know what that says? It means that the refs aren't playing the rule book. They're doing what they think is quote unquote fair, which is, well, a team that every team should have about the same number of power plays. No, that's not fair. If one team is playing aggressive and penalty-laden hockey because they're a worse team than the team they're facing, then they should face the consequences of that. They should have to go on the penalty kill, and they shouldn't be allowed to play that way. The game would be more fun if the rule book didn't go away. And the Leafs have a very similar argument to be made. A lot of the games that the Leafs lost were because less penalties were called on the Bruins. And it's just not fair to other teams. So, like I said, there's no reason to be mad. There's reason to be upset, but you're never going to get an apology from the league. And so what I would say is you should look for major penalties to be reviewable. This is already something that's true in the AHL, in the minor leagues. They review these penalties to make sure that the right call is made. And you could be like, oh, but it slows the game down. Is anyone really arguing that, the right call shouldn't be made? You can take it as long as you want. To me, it doesn't slow the game down that much. Things that slow the game down are refs talking in a corner saying, oh, did you see it? Did you see it? Well, yeah, no, I didn't see it, but we have to do something. And that happened to us twice. The refs didn't see what happened in the face-off circle with Eakin. The refs didn't see what happened behind the net with Marchessault in last game, in where Couture took the high stick. They didn't see it. And then they just called something because somebody stayed down or looked hurt or did something like that. It's, the refs are human, and so they should be given the assistance they need in order to call the game correctly.
Well, that is our rant on this game, if you would. Oh boy. If you want to quickly talk about some of these other games.
Yeah, I suppose. So the Leafs lose Game 7, possibly the worst game of the series that the Leafs played. Third time in 3 years. It's basically what people are expecting at this point.
Rip the Leafs. I already see the memes, the first-time memes about getting kicked out of the playoffs.
Well, actually, the Leafs are the only other team to blow a 3-0 lead in Game 7. They blew a 4-1 lead in Boston in Game 7 in 2013. And so, but the difference between that blown lead and our blown lead, quote unquote, I say blown, but the Bruins did it legitimately. They did it 5-on-5. Well, they did it 6-on-5. They pulled their goalie, and they put goals in the back of the net with skill. It's one of the greatest fall aparts in the history of hockey, and it's not because of a wrong call. It's because the Bruins were the better team for the last 5 minutes, is what it comes down to.
And then the Capitals and the Hurricanes, that is tied once again.
Yep, Canes win again at home. We're going to Game 7 in Washington. These two teams, Washington has won every game in Washington. Carolina has won every game in Raleigh. We'll see what that means for Game 7.
And I'm sure you don't want to talk about it, but the Stars did win.
I don't care. It was an overtime. It was exciting overtime. Speaking of exciting overtimes, you want to talk about our overtime?
Yeah, I wanted to mention it really quick with
possibly the greatest period of hockey ever played that shouldn't have ever been played. And basically what it comes down to is they had an extra guy. Because if I remind you, Eakin didn't just get 5. He got 5 and 10. So normally after the 5, he would have been allowed to come back. He got 5 and 10 for something that should have been 2. He was not allowed to come back.
Well, I think the thing that really, really won the game for them was Barclay Goodrow. That man, they put him on the ice. You know how much time he had on the ice total this entire game?
Is it about 8 minutes, I think?
7 minutes, 26 seconds.
There you go. Yeah, and he didn't
all of
play
our guys
the
are
first
out there.
15 minutes of overtime. He sat on the bench for 15 minutes and was fresh, got on the ice. All the Knights are tired. They're beat down. They're like you have guys playing extra shifts, and it's happened before. You get a fresh guy on the ice, and that's what happens.
The moment I saw how fast Goodrow was moving out there, I was like, "Yep, this is over."
Yeah,
it was inevitable. I mean, when you get someone that fresh against just all of the Knights were just exhausted out there, and it was.
Yeah, there's really not much
gonna
you can
happen.
do.
Well, anyways, the Knights lose the series 3-4. Big tears, big sad.
Yep. So, just like right now, as we're recording this, I'm watching Washington and Carolina play their overtime in Game 7. There's a minute left, so we're going to add a little addendum here on the end once we know who's actually won. And then we can talk about the next round series in another video.
Yep,
Go Avs.
And, we will be back in another video to talk about all of the other teams in the next series. We won't be doing individual games, but we will keep you updated on what's going on in the league.
Yeah, maybe a video every other day after like a couple games are played, just so we can talk about the games as a whole. I maintain, I think that anyone who is trying to get into the sport of hockey, watch a game that you don't care who wins. Go watch a Stars Blues game. Go watch a Boston Columbus game. Go watch a game that you don't care about, and just keep an eye on what happens. And also watch the face-offs, because I'm telling you, if you can count them. If a face-off is won clean, somebody's getting cross-checked. Just watch it happen. And so I really encourage anyone to just go keep watching playoff hockey, because it really is the best playoff format that there is. It's an exciting game where anybody can win. Columbus can sweep the best team in the league. The Islanders can go from the worst team to the best to sweeping 3-time, depending on where you count, 4-time Stanley Cup champions. In it's it's. This offseason has been an upset for almost everyone who was predicting it. But the fact of the matter is that they're good enough. They're good enough to win. The Stanley Cup might be the hardest trophy in American sports to win, and it takes, like I said before Game 7, it takes grit and determination, and it takes showing that that you are a team that can go the distance. And you know what?
Not to bag on football or anything, but it takes a bit more than one game to win the trophy.
Yeah, it's. Wait, what do you mean? Like, are you saying that it takes a bit more than one game to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, no. Well, to win a Super Bowl, it takes literally.
It takes exactly
you play in the Super
one
Bowl
game.
and that's it. To win
and
the
then
Stanley
in the case
Cup,
of
you
the
play
Saints,
7
it takes
games.
exactly one call to get denied, right? I mean,
Did
very
you just drop
rarely,
football knowledge on me.
very rarely does a hockey game get decided by one call like it did tonight. It almost never happens. And
Well, unless you're the Golden Knights.
yeah, and to go from, you know, like other hockey fans' perception of this fan base and this team being, oh, you guys got it all, the draft was unfair, blah 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 blah, to, okay, you guys get it now, because I don't think a single person being intellectually honest thinks that was a major call. I haven't seen anyone. The only thing that I've seen is after people go, well, that shouldn't have been a major call, people respond, well, you shouldn't let in 4 goals in 5 minutes, which is true. It's all true, but the it doesn't change the fact
the call
that what
itself
happened was
shifted
unfair.
the momentum.
Yeah, it doesn't change that what happened was unfair.
If the call didn't happen, there's a good chance the momentum wouldn't have shifted.
Absolutely the case.
There's definitely something big about players seeing one of their teammates downed and
Their captain
going out
knows.
onto the ice fighting for that man.
Yeah, and then after the first one goes in, it just builds. And then, you know, when Marchessault scored that, it became a 50-50 game again. When Marchessault ties it up, it became a 50-50 game again, and it could have gone either way. You know, it sucks to go out this way, and you know, there's nothing else to it. But part of being a fan of a sports team is rooting for your team, not just when you win. You know, it's saying, you know, let's take what we learned from that loss and come back. You know, if you lose every game in the year, you're still gonna be a fan of the team anyway, I mean, that's part of what liking anything is about. You know, sometimes you have to just like the bad things.
Okay, well, we have been ranting at you guys for like 30 minutes now, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We will see you guys next time.
Canes are going into a second overtime.
We'll see you next time. We're going to go ahead update you guys on the Caps and Canes video whenever that finishes. And we'll have more videos for you talking about the rest of the playoffs as a whole, and we'll see you guys next time.
Addendum. Canes win. Fuck the Caps. Let's go.